everyone, all this month we're learning about gratitude, letting others know you see how they've helped you. And one fun way we've been thanking people is through shout outs. And there's one shout out that definitely needs to be added to this board. See, November is National Adoption Month, and this is a month set aside to raise awareness about the needs out there for foster care and adoptive families for children and youth. There are over 10,000 children and youth in foster care in Washington State. And my shout out goes to the families that we know and the families that we don't know who have opened their homes and their hearts and who've answered God's call to care for his precious children. I am grateful to you because this is the single most thing that keeps me up at night. I think you are heroes, and I say that recognizing that not everyone can foster or adopt, but everyone can do something to help care for the orphaned and vulnerable. So if you want information on that and ways that you can help, contact me or Pastor Lindsay. Now back to our shout outs. Look at this board. We got more this week and we got so many I ran out of shout out cards. So I'm just going to read them right now to you, okay? Joe and Adam are thankful for family, friends, and health. Heidi is thankful for our church, community, and family, and coffee. Fiona is thankful for her kitty. The Wong family is thankful to be back in their house. Latrice is thankful for church, family, and friends, for small blessings daily, and the ability to see the beauty in the world. Jennifer is thankful to have our church and to worship together and for our dedicated pastors. Liani is thankful for online church, a pillar of strength during these tough times. James and Philip, they're thankful for their computers. This has been a great month of thanks, and I have to say you are really, really good at thanking people and thanking God. And that's something because it is not always easy to be thankful. All kinds of things can get in the way, like circumstances and worries, responsibilities and busyness. And today we're going to talk about something else that can get in the way of gratitude. Now our Bible story is a story. Well, a specific kind of story called a parable. Basically, parables are stories that Jesus told to explain something about God or about heaven. And the parable we're going to talk about today can be found in the Gospel of Matthew. It's known as the parable of the vineyard workers. Now here's the story Jesus told, okay? A man who owned land went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. And he agreed to pay them the regular amount for a full day's work. And they thought that was good, so they took the job. Then around 9 in the morning, the owner went out again and he hired more workers and he told them, "I'll pay you what is right." The owner went out again at about noon and did the same thing. Then the owner went out again around 3 o'clock in the afternoon and he hired some more workers, again telling them, "I will pay you what is right." And at about 5 p.m., the owner went out and found other workers. He asked why they'd been standing there all day long and they said no one had hired them. So he hired them to work in his vineyard too at 5 p.m. That evening, the owner spoke to the person who was in charge of the workers. He said to call the workers and give them their pay. And the owner told him to start with the last ones he'd hired. That would be the ones that were hired at 5 p.m. And then to go on to the first ones. So the workers hired at 5 got a normal day's pay. So did the workers who came in at 3 in the afternoon. And also those who were hired at noon and those who were hired at 9 a.m. got the same. No matter how long they'd been working that day, they each got the same amount of pay. So I'm going to pause from the parable to ask you this question. What do you think about that? Do you think that's fair? I mean, imagine you were helping your mom or dad rake leaves in the yard all day and they told you, "You're working so hard, we're going to give you a treat." Like, I don't know, going to get ice cream or something. Now imagine if your brother or sister comes out to help for the last half hour and they get the same treat as you, except you were the one who was working out there all day. How would you feel about that? That's how the early morning workers felt. Probably, maybe. Well, let's see what happens next in the story Jesus is telling. So those who were hired first, the early morning workers, expected to get more money. They started to complain because they'd worked all day. But everyone got the same pay at the end of the day, even those who had barely done anything. And here's what the owner said to one of them. And we're going to read this together from the Bible. So read it out loud with me. "Friends," he said, "I'm being fair to you. Didn't you agree to work for the usual day's pay? Take your money and go. I want to give the one I hired last the same pay I gave you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money? Do you feel cheated because I gave so freely to others?" That's in Matthew 20:13 through 15. Well, what do you think Jesus was teaching us with this story? I mean, parables are meant to make us think, and there isn't always just one answer. That's why so many books have been written about the parables Jesus told. And I think in this parable, Jesus is saying that God gives freely to everyone. Sure, maybe the workers at the end didn't deserve the same pay as the early morning workers, but that isn't the point. I mean, this parable isn't really about money. It's about how generous God is. He gives good things to everyone. And even though that should make us feel happy, sometimes we can have a bad attitude about it and we start to complain. So I have one more question for you. Imagine you're sitting with your family and eating ice cream after that hard day of yard work, for most of you. Would the ice cream taste as good to you if your brother or sister who didn't work nearly as hard as you was receiving the same treat? Maybe not if you were focused more on thinking about how unfair it all is. I mean, look, it can be really tough to be grateful when we look around and see the things other people have, especially if we've worked really, really hard for what we have. That's why we have to be careful and make sure we have a thankful attitude instead of focusing on what others have and comparing it to how hard we've worked, or I don't know, maybe to what we don't have. We can choose to be grateful for what we do have. Bottom line, adjust your attitude. Let's say that together, okay? Adjust your attitude. I hope you all find all kinds of ways to enjoy Thanksgiving. Let's end our time by saying our verse together, okay? Give thanks to the Lord because He is good. His faithful love continues forever. Psalm 136:1. At this time, we're going to continue in worship. And as we do, come before God and ask God to give you the eyes to see the beauty around you, to give you a heart for understanding how gracious and good He's been to you your whole life. Amen.